Qantas has had a torrid time. COVID was a disruptor that the global economy has never seen. Qantas was not immune from the effects of that. And what happened. Okay, when you look at the pace at which Australia opened up post-COVID, it bore no resemblance to what the rest of the world was doing. After all, here in Victoria, they were closed for a long time. So if you're trying to run a domestic operation, an international operation, given that it's a public listed company and given that they had all the financial parameters that they had to meet, not the least of which was survival, I thought at the time that Alan was doing quite a good job. The Qantas brand is so important to the Australians. It's always tickled me that, you know, airlines are so important to the identity of the communities or the people of the countries that you don't see it in mining, you don't see it in banking, you don't see it in maritime, you don't see it in all the other things. But airlines have to be. So the ebb and flow of luck or judgment or whatever it is that determines the future of an airline driven by its management are always judged by the communities in which they serve. So I think what happened there is that they had a sort of triple storm of things happening to them, which we as the airline community also faced. I never doubted that Qantas, which as I've said many times, I used to fly on them in 1958 on Super Constellations. So this brand has been around for a long time. It's been a leader in aviation circles. People like Alan, when he came out of Jetstar and picked up the reins in Qantas, he went through torrid times then, but he actually did a good job, and he at times he was the hero in the media here. So,
but he was the villain at the end. You'd admit that. Of
course, you know, whether or not that's the truth, I don't know. It's for other people to judge. I respected the man as an airline leader, as the thought leader in the whole business. He was well respected by his peer group. But what happened. And now we have a new leadership team in Qantas who are utterly focused, laser focused on placating the concerns of the travelling public in Australia, restoring the brand to its former glory by doing the basics that people want. And talking to Vanessa and the team over the last few days, it's clear to me that they are not going to compromise on that. So I think eventually where Qantas used to be up there as one of the top brands, it'll get there, and sooner rather than later. And the rest will be history. Just move on. And for us, we're vested in Qantas' success and what it does. We're a firm believer that it was the right move that we took all those years ago. We continue to believe that this partnership will develop and provide a range of products, goods and services for the communities that we serve, both in Australia and outside, doing the right thing for Australia, as well as all the other markets that we bring people to and from.
Have you at any stage considered as to whether that alliance you have, because you're not part of One World, you're not part of Star Alliance, you do alliances with individual airlines. Did you ever consider that alliance with Qantas during all this period?
No, we were a firm believer in its continuation. It never occurred to us at all that there would be any movement away from that. We knew they were going through bad times. We watched it, and you know, we had our concerns that, you know, it was important for us that Qantas survived. And well, of course we were restricted. We weren't flying to Australia for a year or so, apart from our freighter operations and our our sort of repatriation flights that we put in. And we did it latterly in the Israeli problems that we brought the Australian community out of that. But in terms of the importance of Australia to us, the importance of the relationship with Qantas to us, it is a bedrock on what we do. And as a result of all of this, over the years that we've been doing it, we're now into about 11, 12 years of this. It's been very good for us. I hope it's been good for Qantas, and I hope it's been good for the sort of Australian economy and its public.
Okay, so pre-COVID, you had 77 flights into Australia. Now, last year you weren't back there. Are you back there yet?
No, not quite, but we are putting a second Brisbane in very soon. We're putting a second Perth in. Adelaide is out there. We're determined to go back into Adelaide, and we're looking at more production into Australia over the years to come. I mean, to remain static is in a growing market is you know, you've got to respond. You've got to
then go to Dubai, and that was the vision many, many years ago, decades ago, to use Dubai as the centre, as the hub, to transform the Emirates, for starters, their economies, but also to see it as the centre of the world from an aviation point of view. Hindsight being hindsight with these long-haul aircraft now, it was prescient, wasn't it?
It was. And I think in many respects we defined what the future was going to look like. And the notion that you would create a super hub as we did with the tools that we now have, the ability to get from Dubai to just about anywhere on the planet. With the 7878 we could probably reach Hawaii from Dubai in either direction. You know, it has such amazing legs. So it's a combination of that, and what it does, it meets the aspirations, the growing aspirations of the travelling public, not just in Australia, but everywhere we see this. People are on the move. Demand for air travel continues to grow at pace. The population of the planet is growing. And it's up to the governments in their various aviation policies to try and accommodate all of that.
A lot of people are talking about the sustainability, about the emissions. So SAF is the fuel. You flew in November last year, the first commercial flight that came into Australia using this particular mix of fuels. Are governments doing enough around the world to encourage airlines to use this fuel?
I think they've gone a little bit too far, in the sense that it's not encouraging. They're introducing what we call the mandate, where they're saying you must, by such and such a point, uplift X percentage of your fuel requirements, otherwise you're in for a problem. This is not the way to do it. This stick approach, in my view, is not the way to get us across the line with regard to SAF. Today, the airline community, to a man, woman, call it what you like, would be using SAF if they could. We're equally concerned about the effect.
So why can't they use SAF?
Because there isn't enough being produced.
So why is there not being enough produced?
Because the investment needed to create refineries to do it, or convert old refineries, the cost of the feedstock, or importantly the opportunity cost of the feedstock. In other words, if you extract feedstock from arable land which is put down for food production, you've got to be a little bit wary of that. So at the moment, the biomass feedstock, then you've got the cooking oils and all the other bits and pieces. This is all well and good, but the reality is that is it going to produce today, 0.1% of the total production of aviation fuel is SAF, 0.1%. We've been given goals of 6%, 10%, and all the other bits and pieces. We would be the first to grab it. As you say, we demonstrated that we can fly the aeroplanes on stuff that's come out of cooking oil or whatever you like. The scalability of what they're talking about is, remember, 550 million tonnes was consumed per annum prior to COVID by the aviation community. 0.1% is going nowhere. 10%, 55 million, but it continues to grow. Demand for travel continues to grow. So we need to, first of all, face the reality of what we can do. Technology is moving at pace, particularly in power to liquid, hydrogen, and all the other bits and pieces. But whether that's going to deliver this in the timescale that everybody aspires to is a question of the science, the scalability, and the investment that comes into it, both from governments and the private sector. If the two are at odds as to who puts the money in, there's going to be a difficulty in all of getting to where we need to be. And then, of course, the governments may say, well, not our problem. If you don't uplift 10% by such and such a point, we're going to fine you. We're going to fine the airports for not having the facilities to do it. We're going to fine the production companies for not producing the oil to fill the facilities that aren't there. And then eventually it comes full circle and it ends up being paid for by the consumer. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is really get to grips with it, invest in the things that we need to do to get some modicum of SAF in the sense, but really the future is determined by technology which looks at alternative means other than what we're doing. But if you're going power to liquid and you want to get hydrogen, the power that takes is enormous. So you can only do that through, you won't get through that through alternative sources, solar, wind, etc. You need to go into things like nuclear. And nuclear will give you, modular nuclear energy will give you the ability to not only power what you need for a country, but also give you the power to do all these power to liquid transformations. But don't forget, hydrogen is not a mobile thing. If you're trying to get hydrogen production plants into tertiary manufacturing areas like the Ruhr, you've got to be able to distribute it, and therein lies issues with regard to how you do that. Or do you co-locate those manufacturing plants close to the sources of manufacturing, or do you put them in where you might, for instance, get solar as well as nuclear, producing what you need to do it? I don't know. All those things are out there, but are we going to do it overnight? No.
It's always good to chat to you, and many thanks for your time today.
You're welcome.